And welcome, folks, to the Not Mike and Mike Show. My name is Brian Nelson. I am not Mike, and joined with me, as always, is Mike McLeod. He is Mike, and we got some new digs, Mike.
Yeah,
what you think?
Yeah, I'm looking around. I'm liking it. This is real. This isn't digital and created. This is actually there. I can reach out and touch it. It's
and
nice.
we actually have 3 cameras now.
Hey,
that we
yeah.
can
we show them off? Can we go camera 3? We can't go camera 3. There's camera 3.
There you go.
Okay.
Right.
Camera 1? Can we look at Brian?
Hey, there you go. And so today we are going to talk about the last 3 weeks we haven't been able to talk about football in our Not Reality League. And
I'm going to blame the building of the new set on the reason why we couldn't meet.
I know. There's just a couple weeks. It took a long time to build, but I think it was worth it. And so we'll recap kind of the moves that we both made and update you on our overall records. And then for our second segment, we'll talk about the teams that are contenders, the ones that are pretenders, and the ones that are straight garbage. But first, let's talk about Week 8. That's 3 whole weeks ago. My record was 3-1-1. And football, folks, football.
We haven't gotten a lot of production value out of the boys in the back yet. But.
So I went with Seattle, Denver, New York Jets, Cincinnati Bengals, and the New England Patriots. And, of course, the Seattle Seahawks tied in that one, I believe. No, Cincinnati was the one that tied.
The London game. I told you to stay away from it.
I've had 2 ties in this league so far. So my record, as you can see on the screen, 29-19-2. Now, Mike, that is a pretty difficult record to kind of compulate.
I don't compulate?
Or, you know, just to calculate, computate.
Don't be using these big words on me. I can maybe think of it. I don't know if they can think of it.
It's a lot of decimal points is what I'm getting at. So when we compare our 2 records, it's going to be kind of difficult. So we agreed that we have 2 ties so that
you have 2 ties.
I have 2 ties. Yeah. So the way to make it fair is to give me a win and give me a loss.
I mean, basically a tie is supposed to count for half a win anyway. So when it was 1 tie, you couldn't really do anything about it. Now you have 2, so you can count 1 as a win, 1 as a loss, and it just makes it simpler for everybody at home.
And so my overall record is 30-20 now. And so, Mike, we'll go to your overall record. You have a record just slightly below mine, 29-21. Your week 3, your 3 weeks, you went 3-2 in each of them.
Yeah, so a little bit changing around, a little bit changing the guard. Pittsburgh was on bye week, so I dropped Minnesota, who I had picked up because they were 5-1 at the time, and they've lost 3 straight, so that's a good drop from me.
Minnesota fans happy.
Yeah.
That you can blame Mike for.
You're welcome.
For that.
And then, hopefully, moving forward, the Green Bay Packers will continue to lose because I've dropped them. Not in these. We'll get to that next week, but 3-2 each week. Oakland's going to be is on bye for Week 10, so I had to pick up Baltimore, who's playing Cleveland. That was a good pickup on my part. You want to recap real quick Week 10? Nobody cares about Week 9. Yeah,
Week 9. Nobody's got time for that middle sandwich of a week.
You went 3-2.
I went 3-2 because I always go 3-2. I went 3-2 in Week 10 as well.
Perfect.
So you're not really missing much. I'm gonna go 3-2 in Week 11. So my moves, I had New England and Seattle actually playing each other. And I think I made the calculated move to just keep both because they're 2 of the best teams in the NFL. I didn't want you to have a chance to swap one of them up.
And I did that too because I had Dallas playing Pittsburgh. So, it's at this point.
Well, gamesmanship.
Yeah, a little bit. But you're guaranteed a win. You are guaranteed a loss. But at least you can't go 0-5.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we both went 2-1 in our other 3 games.
Yeah.
And so no matter what we do, we could have 2 games where we pick both of the sides, and then that last game where it's guaranteed to win because we're going to go 3-2.
Sure. Yeah, obviously.
So my other tems, we have a lot of crossing out. I picked up Tampa Bay because they played the lowly Chicago Bears. Yes. Not very good. No. I also had Denver and New York Jets, I believe.
Yes, the
New York Jets.
Sorry, I was trying to do that math for
why
myself.
I kept the New York Jets, but hey.
You had the Jets for the last 3 weeks, man.
It's like I feel like the Jets is always like a pick'em game where it's like I flip a coin, I hope it lands on heads, but I don't know if really it's going to land on heads.
But it's actually going to land on Jets.
Yeah. So that
because they're tails.
That was a net negative of 1-2 in those 3 weeks.
It's
so
fine.
Not my best moment in this reality league,
but it never is. Plains.
Oversight. So those are our 3 weeks of moves, folks. And I have a 1-game lead after 10 weeks of play. And so 7 left. It's going to be interesting down to the wire what kind of moves we both make.
You know, after the first 3-4 weeks, I thought I was running away with it. I had the good 3-game lead, 4-game lead, and I salted it away, man. I feel like the Carolina Panthers.
I mean, you should. Like
they were my first pick.
They're your first pick.
Started out well and didn't go well from there. So.
Yeah. So when we come back, we are going to talk about the Carolina Panthers and the other teams in the National Football League, where we break down the Super Bowl hopefuls, Super Bowl contenders, and the rest of the league, because let's face it, there's only a certain amount that's in that class of Super Bowl contenders. So when we come back, we will talk about that.
Nailed it.
Nailed that outro.
4 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Takes 3 weeks off. And
if you have an interest in a career in sports broadcasting,
whether it's behind the scenes or on camera,
then this is the class for you.
Class is held every Wednesday from 1:30 to 4:30 in room 121 alongside the library building.
For more information, contact Greg Poff. That's me at solano.edu.
we hope to see you here next semester. And remember,
it's more than just sports. It's an education.
welcome back, everybody. I never get to lead a segment in, so I begged him to let me do this one because this one was my idea. I had seen on Facebook from the NFL Memes Facebook page a hierarchy of teams in the NFL and where they reside, just public perception, maybe actual reality. So we wanted to make our own list, tweak it a little bit. We agree with some, didn't agree with others. So as with everything, there's a hierarchy in the NFL, and we want to lay out, in case you've been under a rock for the last 10 weeks, we want to lay out who's good, who's bad, and who's kind of eh.
So, yeah, let's start out with the good. Might as well start on a positive note. We were both pessimistic people, so
sure.
we'll start with the positives, the
the
Super Bowl contenders. And, Mike, your team, the Oakland Raiders, we'll let that lead off the Super Bowl contenders list.
7-2, entering the bye week, just beat the Denver Broncos. The score at the end was 30-20, but it really wasn't that close. It was pretty much dominated by Oakland from beginning to end. Now they got a couple of really beatable opponents going forward. They might be the number 2 seed in the AFC, behind another Super Bowl contender, New England Patriots. You have them on your team since week 2. You want to talk about them a little bit?
I mean, yeah, the Patriots are just the model of consistency. It doesn't matter who they throw out there. Tom Brady threw the first interception of the entire Patriots season.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett hadn't had an interception until. You okay there, Mike?
I saw it was on you.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the red light over there telling it was on you.
Okay.
It's just some kinks to work out. Now it's on me. I see that.
We're not used to this whole 3-camera setup thing. We're not sure where to look, who to look at. So I'm just going to look at you, Mike.
All right.
I'm going to look at you and talk about the Patriots and how they're coming off this loss to the Seattle Seahawks. But that's nothing really to worry about if you're a Patriots fan. The Seattle Seahawks, one of the top teams in the NFC. So really, the Patriots have such a beatable division as well. The Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, they're not at all in the league of the Patriots. So they just get to feast on those teams for 6 games, and then the rest of the league, they pale in comparison as well. So they really are the front runner. You expect them to get that top seed in the AFC, but hey, if it comes down to an Oakland, New England playoff matchup, that'll definitely be an interesting one for the future.
Speaking of Seattle, we also have Seattle on that list. I think that you've already made the case that Seattle is a force to be reckoned with in the NFC, and there's really nobody. We thought the Cardinals were going to be good. They're not good. There's only really one other team in the NFC that's even coming close, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. But you talk about defense, and you talk about being able to just get turnovers and stop people when you need to, and they beat New England. And New England's not supposed to be able to lose to anybody. And, first interception of the season goes to Seattle. Yeah. We talked about at the beginning of the year, Seattle's defense maybe not, they're a bend but don't break defense. They force a lot of turnovers. They're a good fantasy option for most leagues. Seattle's got a lot of what it takes, man.
And the fact is, Russell Wilson hasn't been healthy the entire year. He's been battling through injuries. His last 2 years as a starter, he's been one of the top 2 quarterbacks in throws outside of the pocket. He hasn't had the mobility this year. He's in the teens right now. So that just shows that Russell Wilson's been a different quarterback, and they've still been able to win these close games and manage such a good record, as I believe they're second just behind the Cowboys in terms of overall record, or they might be tied. Cowboys only have 1 loss,
yeah,
right?
Cowboys only have 1 loss.
Seattle has 2. So that's the other team in the NFC that we really like for our Super Bowl contenders is the Dallas Cowboys. And now, Mike, I've heard a lot of this conversation of how Dallas's O-line should be the MVP of the league.
Yeah, well, you can't give it to 5 guys. But
yeah, what do you think of that argument, though?
I mean, if you ask Chris Collinsworth, then the best offensive line in football is the left side of the Oakland Raiders line. But Dallas's O-line, man, you saw what they could do against who'd they just play?
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Thank you. They go down 6 with 40 seconds left. What do? They run the ball. And they score a touchdown on it, and they win the game. And you have to have a lot of faith in an O-line to be able to run the ball with less than 40 seconds left when you need a touchdown. When you can say that Ezekiel Elliott is an MVP contender, it has a lot to do with an O-line that made Darren McFadden look like a 1,000-yard rusher last year, just throwing out guys that were signing off the street and were getting over 100 yards a game. So, yes, Dallas's O-line is legit. They're keeping Dak upright. Dak Prescott has Tony Romo as his mentor to say, hey, kid, maybe you should audible this play. There's 8 guys in the box on this power run to the right. This isn't going to work. I don't care how good our O-line is. It's just little things that need to be tweaked. I don't think Dallas wins it all this year, but they're there. They're right there, kind of fringy. If Tony Romo has to come back to lead them over the hump, I think that's the change that needs to take place in order for them to be really contenders. But they only have 1 loss, and we're halfway through the season.
Yeah, and I think they kind of compare a little bit to the Raiders in terms of their offense is just so good, and their defense just can't lose it for them.
Yeah.
They just have to be good enough to win, and that's kind of the formula that those 2 teams kind of implement. Yeah. And our 5th contender is kind of a surprise to a lot of people. People don't really think about this team as a contender, but if you look at their last, I believe, 18 games, they're like 17-1.
Yeah, no.
The Kansas City Chiefs
are
the team we're talking about, and they're just the model of consistency. They have a defense that doesn't have Justin Houston up until this point. He just came off the PUP list. So hopefully that'll improve an already stellar defense. We saw what they did to Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers after they were down 17. Their defense won them that game with the pick 6 from Eric Berry and that strip by Marcus Peters. And that is the complete opposite formula that Dallas has or Oakland has.
Where you have the offense that can't lose you the game. Just score enough points to get by, let the defense hold. It's a lot like Seattle in that way, where it's predicated on the run game. You have a guy that, well, at least this year, obviously Russell Wilson in the last 5 games of last year was phenomenal and MVP candidate, threw more touchdowns than anybody. But this year, with him being hurt, it was a lot more game manager, a lot more 220-yard games, and just let the ball run, and hopefully the defense makes some stops. That's the epitome of what they're trying to do in Kansas City, and it's working.
Yeah. And so that's our 5 top Super Bowl legitimate contenders. That next tier below, though, those Super Bowl hopefuls, the ones that are pretty good, but they have some flaws in their teams, and we're not sure if they're really going to go all the way this year. We'll start out with the Denver Broncos, a team just like the Kansas City Chiefs where they depend on that defense, but it's hard to trust a very inexperienced quarterback in Trevor Siemian. C.J. Anderson is hurt. Obviously, they have Devontae Booker, who is a good rookie, but now you're
Bibbs.
Yeah, Bibbs. So you're really your offense is trusted in a lot of young players, so it's hard to project them to be a Super Bowl team at this point.
I mean, the only reason they're in the hopefuls and not in the lower tier is because of that defense is so good. But the reason why they're not Kansas City or Seattle is because like you said, Trevor Siemian's the quarterback, and it's not Alex Smith. It's not Russell Wilson. It's just a guy that was nicknamed long balls that can't throw the long ball. So now you have a bunch of receivers that are used to getting over the top passes and a quarterback that has to dink and dunk. Their offensive line isn't great. They'll make the playoffs, I think. I think both wild card spots go to AFC West teams. We will be covering that later this week. We're going to have 2 shows this week. We're going to be running through the AFC West gauntlet. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's a little teaser for you. But yeah, Denver is just kind of like there, and you have to give them credit and you have to respect them. But I don't think they have enough, especially when the lights get brighter. I don't think Trevor Siemian, you see what he did in Sunday Night Football when the world was watching. Playoffs is a whole different animal.
Absolutely. And I think these other 3 teams that we have in the hopeful category are kind of the opposite spectrum, where they have these stellar offenses, but you don't know about the whole team dynamic. We'll start with Atlanta. Atlanta always starts out with such a great start.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan, MVP candidate, always for the first 10 games, but then something happens with them, and they become the Atlanta Falcons once again, and they just start struggling.
But they have 2 phenomenal running backs. They have, like you said, an MVP candidate in Matt Ryan. He has more yards and touchdowns than any other quarterback in the league. You have a defense that is, again, very, very much one of those good enough defenses. Name me the top guy on the defense for Atlanta Falcons.
Vic Beasley, maybe.
Exactly. And he's what, second, third year?
Second year, yeah.
So there's not a lot of big names there.
They do have good rookies, though. Keanu Neal,
yeah,
Florida,
they have
Deion Jones.
great, but they don't have that established, we're going to shut you down, you're scared of me walking into the building names. And so Atlanta is Atlanta. They're always going to be Atlanta, and that's why they're not a contender.
I'm just going to change my answer. Marcus Trufant is their best. or Desmond Trufant. Sorry, that's Marcus's brother.
Yeah.
The old Seattle Seahawk corner. Desmond Trufant, the Pro Bowl cornerback. He's the best player. So there you go. One guy. One guy out of 11. All right, and next is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, who their record's 4-5.
Yeah.
It's very surprising, but I think we still like them as just the overall team.
All right. I'm going to just talk Jay off the ledge. Talking directly to you as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. They're 4-5 because Ben Roethlisberger hurt his knee and Landry Jones had to play for 3 games.
Yeah.
And they rushed Ben Roethlisberger back because they knew how important he was to the team. But you still got Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown. And that's going to win you a lot of games. You're 4-5 and you gave up one late to Dallas, who's a Super Bowl contender. You lost to Baltimore, that's a game that you should have had, but it's Baltimore. And any given Sunday, all that stuff. So you're fine. Ben Roethlisberger, whenever he gets healthy, is going to win you. I mean, 11-5 still on the table. 10-6 maybe gets it done. Mm-hmm. I don't know off the top of my head where they are in the division and how many games they really need to win that division. But I don't think Cincinnati or Baltimore is very good. Cleveland, obviously.
Yeah, and even if they don't win the division, I think they're a team primed to be that scary wild card team where you don't want to face them.
If it's not Denver, it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And so Pittsburgh is definitely a hopeful. I think we have a lot more hope than the record indicates, but I think you nailed it right on the head where it's really an injury. It's kind of like the New England Patriots, what we thought about Tom Brady's suspension.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
4 games, you're just going to have to eat it. But then when he comes back, they're going to be the same New England Patriots.
And the Patriots went 3-1.
Yeah, that's so scary for the rest of the league. All right, our last hopeful, a team I rail on constantly.
Yeah.
And I'll shout out to Tristan Vector over in the east side of the United States. The Detroit Lions.
I actually pushed for the Detroit Lions to get on this list, and it's because of one guy.
Jim Bob Cooter?
Jim Bob Cooter.
Jim Bob Cooter.
His favorite name in the league.
Yeah.
But, I talked about it a couple weeks ago. Matt Stafford's numbers as a quarterback have been phenomenal since Jim Bob Cooter. You gotta say his whole name. Yeah. Jim Bob Cooter took over as the.
I can't say Coach Cooter. That sounds weird.
Sounds like a Trump thing. But ever since he took over as the quarterback coach, Matt Stafford has been not an MVP level, but we predicted catastrophe after Calvin Johnson retired. Maybe Calvin Johnson retired a year too early Because, honestly, Matt Stafford's looking real good with the pieces he has. And I think that if he had a perennial 1,500-yard receiver, okay, hot take, Calvin Johnson was holding Matt Stafford back because it was too much of a safety blanket.
I mean, yeah, like you can argue that like his progression as a quarterback gets stunted because you have this amazing weapon that you just constantly throw to every single time. So,
which is the reason why Andy Dalton will never be any better than Andy Dalton is, because he has A.J. Green to bail him out of so many situations.
So what about Matt Ryan though? He has Julio Jones. But
yeah, and that's why he's the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
That's why as soon as they start bracketing Julio Jones on a more regular basis, the rest of the 7 games they're probably going to go like 4-3.
So those are our 4 Super Bowl hopefuls. We'll do one last segment before we go to break. And on a positive, we are going to call this next group of teams the Recyclables, where they're kind of garbage, but they have a chance to turn themselves around, renew themselves,
can be reinvented
for the next 7 weeks, and maybe make the playoffs, have a little bit of hope going forward. And we're going to start with the entire NFC East that is not named the Dallas Cowboys. So the Giants, the Washington Redskins, and the Eagles.
It's always bothered me that the Dallas Cowboys are in the East.
Yeah.
Why are they not in the South?
It definitely is. Who would you swap out with the South?
The Titans.
Well, that's the AFC.
Still.
I was going to say like the Atlanta Falcons. Like they're more east than even New Orleans is more east than Dallas is.
So.
Okay.
That's all I got for you.
All right.
One-liners.
So the Giants, Recyclables. I think their offense is coming around a little bit. Eli really struggled, and that entire offense struggled. The defensive moves from the free agency standpoint really haven't panned out.
I think they haven't panned out yet, and that's why you look at Oakland and you go, okay, their defense gave up 1,000 yards in the first 2 games. They're terrible. Their moves didn't pan out, and they've been getting better every week. And I think that the same thing with the Giants. They've been getting better every week. And I don't know if they'll ever get to a point where they're a defense to be feared, at least not this year. But I think that eventually those moves will pan out once they have that chemistry together and they can gel and trust each other.
Yeah, I would say, though, out of the 3 NFC East teams, probably the Giants are the ones that I think are least likely to kind of turn things around and be a real threat. I think Washington really has come around to really return to the form that they had last year when they won the division. Kirk Cousins, he's not going to wow you with anything. He's going to take the easy dink and dunk pass to like Jamison Crowder or to Jordan Reed, and they're going to score points. It's nothing flashy, but it's effective, and it wins football games.
But do you like it?
I don't have to like it. It's not fun to watch.
Yeah, okay.
But it gets you wins, and at the end of the day, when that's your job to get wins, I mean, do you really have to be likable when you have the racial slurs as your mascot?
That's fair. Well, I mean, you just get to go to a World Series.
Go full WWE heel and just have the worst style, just the most uninteresting way of playing football.
Just be a caricature of yourself.
But you keep winning, and you keep popping up on people's TVs.
Even if you have to win dirty, take out a guy's knee. Who cares?
There you go. And then the last team are the Eagles, with the young Carson Wentz, who finally looks like the league might have figured him out a little bit as he struggled last 3 weeks.
It's a very simple offense. The league finally came around to the idea that, hey, maybe if we just cover running backs, he won't be able to beat us as much. And so you really need more deep play threats. And I don't know if Jordan Matthews is necessarily that guy. He'd be a great slot receiver, just a big guy that can go up and get one. But you need somebody that can take the top off of defense, and you need a quarterback that will eventually, and he will, I think, because obviously he's the best of the first 2 picks that has played this season. Although Jared Goff does have less interceptions. So
also has less touchdowns.
And less yards.
And snaps and fresh.
We'll get to him after the break. But I think Philly just needs to bring him along more. If you want to keep the offense the way it is and just progress him, that's fine. You can do that. But if you want to reinvent yourself, like we're saying that you have the possibility to do, you need to take some risks. And you need to expand the playbook a little bit. It's been half the season. I think it's right. I think it's time.
So those are the NFC East teams that we think are recyclables. The other division that's really up for grabs is the AFC South. You talked about the Titans. They're surprising at 500. Also, the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. Man, this division, any team can win just because there's no clear-cut winner of this that's going to take themselves far away and get themselves a lead with the rest of the season. So this one's really going to come down to week 16, week 17 to decide a division winner. Which team out of those three do you like the best?
It reminds me of when the Saints and the Panthers were trying to get to 7 and 8 to make the playoffs. Somebody has to win between the Texans and Indianapolis. For some reason, I still tend to go Andrew Luck. I had them pegged as a 11-win team at the beginning of the season. Don't I look dumb? Egg on my face. But I told you that J.J. Watt was going to get hurt and the Texans were going to be trash. They're still there because the rest of the division's trash too. Otherwise, we'd have them much lower in the tier rankings. I like Indy over the Texans. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think really the quarterback play, when you looked at last week's stat line from Brock Osweiler, didn't he 99 yards or something like that?
Yeah,
it wasn't even
awful.
like over 100 yards passing. And in this league, how can you not have a quarterback that throws at least 250? It's really going to be an uphill climb for the Texans. And I think the Titans are one of those teams that are sneaky because they don't get national coverage. They're in Tennessee, you know. But the moves that they made, DeMarco Murray is without a doubt, I think, the free agent signing of the year. They didn't sign him, but they traded for him. But the offseason move that really changed the entire identity of the team, because now you have that key star running back that can take the pressure off of Marcus Mariota, and he can do the little slant routes to Delaney Walker or to his wide receivers, Matthews, to Tajee Sharp. And
who got fined and flagged for falling asleep after his first career touchdown.
I mean, that's what you do at a Titans game, right? You just kind of fall asleep once in a while. But really, the Titans, they have been a consistent offense. It's really going to be about their defense and them gelling together as a team, because they haven't been used to winning for so long that how can you trust them going forward?
You know, I completely thought Mariota was overrated. I thought he would be in the league maybe 3 more years, end up like a Jake Locker, get hurt, just retire. Nobody really notices. I thought he was much worse than Jameis Winston, but they're much different
players.
They're different players, and they're in different worlds in terms of like what they're required to do, but they're pretty comparable in just like who would you rather have. They're in that same boat still.
And so I think the Titans have a sneaky shot. I think the Titans might even have a better shot than the Houston Texans do at winning that division. All right, our last 2 recyclable teams, one from the AFC West, one from the NFC South. We're going to go with the Chargers and the Saints, 2 very tumultuous types of teams. They're very volatile, and when they played each other, we saw what kind of fireworks can happen in that game. But their offenses are just so good, and the rest of the team are just so bad.
I mean, they're also linked because both quarterbacks used to play for one of the teams.
Yeah.
But San Diego is about 9 points and 6 ACLs away from being at the very top of the AFC West, in a team that has, or in a division that has 2 7-2 teams and a 6-3 team, or a 7-3 team, I should say. And so I read a stat. It said that San Diego has ruled out somebody for the rest of the season every week except week 6, including their bye week.
Wow.
Some guy, I forget who, hurt his hands and like tore a ligament in his hand during the bye week doing like housework. And so they've just run into really bad luck. San Diego doesn't even want to build them a new stadium. They're probably going to be in LA by this time next year. So they're not really in the recyclables because this season's kind of shot, but they're not trash because they just fell on really hard times. A botched snap away from being able to beat the Oakland Raiders. They're in every game. They have fourth quarter leads in almost every single game. They're right there, and if things had fallen differently, they'd be the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I think maybe like a little subcategory. These teams aren't going to win and necessarily make the playoffs this year, but these are the teams you don't want to face.
Yeah.
Like, they're the sneaky little landmines that, like, you want to try to avoid.
They're the trap games. They're the they play spoiler way too well.
Yeah, and Drew Brees, obviously, with his arm and Sean Payton's offense, they're in every single game that they play. And they have their receivers now. Marcus Colston left, and Willie Snead, even though he's not the flashiest name in the world, is in there. Brandon Cooks as a slot receiver. Michael Thomas is a really tall rookie from Ohio State that looks pretty good. He had a couple fumbles in the game this past week, but he still looks like a promising young player for Drew Brees to really target. And that Saints offense is just so dangerous that you don't want to face them if you're any of the other teams in the league. All right, so those are our contenders, our hopefuls, and the recyclables with a couple trap games in between.
Yep.
When we come back, we are going to talk about the garbage teams, the undercover trash teams, the just straight-up trash teams, and the own special subcategory for one particular team.
It's going to be great.
Hey guys, I'm Tiana Wilson here on the Solano College Sports Network with an exciting update about our brand new show, Sound Off, a sports talk show focusing on local sports in the Bay Area, featuring schools like Fairfield's very own Armio, Rodriguez, Fairfield High, and of course, Solano Community College. The show will be hosted by Soad Balazi, featuring Dylan Collins and Josh Kinder. I'm Tiana Wilson, and thank you for watching the Solano College Sports Network, your number one source for local sports.
Welcome back, folks, to the Not Mike and Mike show. We are going to talk about the not-so-good teams of the NFL. We're going to talk about the undercover trash, the trashy teams, and then our special subcategory. All right, a lot of people in the undercover trash category, Mike. Let's start
9 teams.
With one of the teams that was a staple. Maybe not a staple, but a team you picked up.
3-week staple. Like you had the Jets, I had the Minnesota Vikings.
Exactly.
They started out 5-0, and everybody went, wow, okay, they're great. Best team in football. Sam Bradford is an MVP. And then they lost 4 straight. And that's why they're undercover trash, because you just throw a blanket on them and you go, hey, that defense, man, we could probably find a clip of me saying this defense, it's good, it doesn't have name power, but it's good enough, and it's solid. It's not solid anymore. It's very mushy.
Yeah, very pedestrian defense. They still have some good players. Harrison Smith, Anthony Barr, solid players.
Yeah, no, they're good, but
they're not carrying a team enough like they were for their 5-1 start.
They miss Adrian Peterson. That finally caught up to them.
Yes.
They don't have really a run game, and you can't ask Sam Bradford to throw 40 times a game.
The other thing they miss are their tackles. Matt Khalil, they signed Andre Smith from the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think they still had Phil Lodeholt, but their tackles, they're down to, I believe, their 5th and 6th tackles on the team because Jake Long just got hurt.
So maybe they're not as trash as they should be. They just fell on some bad luck too, but they're not going to do anything. They're not going to go anywhere. Yeah. They're really, even with the Packers being bad, they have a shot of finishing 3rd in this division.
Yes. And so that's
right where I put them.
Another team that is really not as good as their record indicates, LA Rams. You told us the interesting stat you want to share with the folks.
The LA Rams have a better record in games where they don't score a touchdown.
That is unfathomable. That in this league that has so many touchdowns from so many people, that the LA Rams have a better record when they don't score a touchdown.
I think it's just a matter of the Rams playing to their opponent. They play the Seattle Seahawks and they win 9-6. And then they play the Niners and they lose 28-0. That's the real dichotomy of this team, is just losing against the teams you should win against and beating the teams you should lose against. Ultimate trap game, but they're trash.
Yeah. Jeff Fisher, you just pencil him in 6-10, 7-9, 8-8. It's just guaranteed.
And he said at the beginning of the season he was tired of 8-8, so he's going to finish 7-9 this year.
Way to break that streak, Jeff. Way to shoot for your goals by starting Case Keenum for 10 straight weeks. Jared Goff not even seeing the field. What do you make of that?
He's bad. I don't know. He seemed all right in the preseason, But like Christian Ponder seemed all right in the preseason too, and we haven't seen him either. So I don't know.
All right, we don't know, folks. Bengals, next undercover trash team. That, I think, a lot had to do with Tyler Eifert not coming back and them being kind of one-dimensional of, hey, we have a great offensive weapon in A.J. Green, but that's just kind of it. It's just Andy Dalton and A.J. Green, and if that is better than your team, then you win. Then you win.
I mean, you look at A.J. Green, and they're undefeated in games where he has over 150 yards receiving. But they're almost winless in games where he has under 100 yards receiving. So that really speaks to your point of if he does well, the team wins, but like they lost to the Jets in week 1 or they barely beat them, and it's just been a lot of up and down. It's bad. And
they just have that kind of name power of like being in the playoffs every single year under Marvin Lewis. So people are like, oh, the Bengals. Yeah, they're good, right?
Yeah.
But this year's kind of different. They're not up to that same level as they have been in the past. Consistently, their defense isn't as good as it once was. And again, their offense has just become one-dimensional. Like, what do you hear from Gio Bernard anymore? Or
Giovanni Bernard was like one of the most touted people that I had heard about when he got drafted. And then he got passed by Jeremy Hill, and you never heard from him again.
And you don't hear from Jeremy Hill either.
Exactly. They need another running back.
So Cincinnati, they just need a new coach. They just need a
Marvin Lewis, I don't think is the problem. I think
Marvin Lewis being there for a decade plus is a problem. Like him in a vacuum is a good coach. And I think just the same voice over and over gets old.
Is it the Tom Coughlin effect of just like, all right, what you've done has done well. Or like the Mark Jackson effect with the Golden State Warriors, to switch to a different sport for a second. Like, the rhetoric worked to an extent, but it's not getting us any further than that. So
yeah, they're getting to the point where Marvin Lewis can take them right now, which is 10-6, first round in the playoffs, and then you lose. And it's just a consistent pattern.
Perfect has 14 penalties in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it doesn't always have to be one player or whatever, but for whatever reason, they salt a game away in the playoffs, and they just can't get over that hump.
Yeah, so I really think they need an upheaval of the entire system, starting with the owner, too. Yeah. Their owner's terrible. Yeah. Let's go now to another team that probably should fire their coach, Buffalo Bills. Rex Ryan. Oh, man. Isn't nepotism
Sexy
good
Rexy.
that you can hire your brother and just keep working and getting a paycheck even though your team is terrible? You admit you're terrible. You admit you're never going to beat the Patriots.
And it's going to be great because as soon as Buffalo fires him, Cincinnati will hire him. And then he'll just go there, and then he'll hire Rob as his defensive coordinator there too. The Ryan brothers are not going away.
No. And unfortunately, the Buffalo Bills...
They're not going anywhere either.
Yeah, and the injury bug has caught up with them on the wide receiver core, but they don't use Sammy Watkins anyway.
Yeah.
So
Sammy Watkins is completely underutilized there. He needs the Marshawn Lynch treatment. He needs to go somewhere else where he can really shine as if you're losing snaps to Robert Woods, there's a problem.
Yeah. And they have just enough talent to be kind of good because Shady McCoy in that system does a lot of good things for them. And offensively, Tyrod Taylor is a solid quarterback and can get you points. But at the end of the day...
And they have legitimate gripes about the way that Seattle game played out. But, you put yourself in that position. They're competitive in a lot of games. And you go, oh, well, they beat the Patriots. And, they were right there with the Seahawks. And that doesn't do anything for you at the end of the day if you end up 7-9, 8-8.
Yeah, and let's talk about another team in that division, the Miami Dolphins.
Yes.
They're on a roll right now. They've been on a small winning streak, but it's a case of...
Who do they beat during that winning streak?
I know Cleveland was one of them.
Okay.
I don't watch Dolphins football because, I enjoy my weekends, and I don't want to watch Dolphins football, so I'm not sure who else.
Yeah, no, exactly. Who have they beaten? They're on a winning streak and go, oh, wow. You look up at the scoreboard and Miami's won again. And then you realize it was against Cleveland. And you go, maybe not.
So, they beat the San Diego Chargers last week because Kiko Alonso that trade worked out for them somehow, some way. That Kiko Alonso was a difference maker. But really, Miami is trending upwards, but it's not going to go anywhere. They're still trash.
Yeah.
That's the definition of undercover trash, right?
Is that they look like they could be good and look like it could be going somewhere, and they'll lose 3 straight because they have a rookie head coach.
Yeah, and let's shift over to the 2 teams that a lot of people, including us, thought were going to be contenders or at least hopeful in winning a Super Bowl. Arizona Cardinals and Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
These are the ultimate undercover trash teams because you wouldn't think of Aaron Rodgers as trash in any sort of the word, but that team as a whole, speaking of a coach that's been there too long, his voice is probably not being heard the same way as it was when he was first hired. Mike McCarthy with the Green Bay Packers.
He's not going anywhere, though.
Are you sure?
If Gus Bradley can have a job and not get fired after they lose the way they do, then Mike McCarthy, I know he lost by 22 to the Titans of all teams, but Green Bay, Mike McCarthy's not going anywhere. He's as much Green Bay as Aaron Rodgers is.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far.
I think of them as 1A and 1B in terms of like the Green Bay Packers.
Okay. I still think if he gets fired, maybe he goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You never know.
Blake Bortles, Allen Robinson with that offense, but hey, that's a topic for another show.
But yeah, and if you want to make the effort, you can find the clip of me saying, the Green Bay Packers are going to go to the Super Bowl. I think their defense is good enough. I think their offense is otherworldly. And they're going to just do enough to really make it into the playoffs and maybe surprise some folks, make it to the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen. They're bad.
Same as the Cardinals. They're bad. They couldn't beat the 49ers last week. It took a last-minute drive for them to kick a field goal to beat the 49ers.
I'm surprised they didn't just go for it the way their kicker's been working out. Yeah. I had him on my fantasy team. I love Chandler Catanzaro. I know way too many kickers in this league. But, man, it's just they've had some bad breaks, which resulted in a tie, and they're technically over 500 by a half a game if you include ties. But, you know, they're just not – they're nowhere near the Seahawks. They're nowhere near the contenders, and they were supposed to be.
Yeah. So I think that it's kind of the disappointment. The 4-4 aspect also makes them very undercover trash because they have the mystique of being Bruce Arians' offense. They're very aggressive. They have Larry Fitzgerald. They have David Johnson, who's probably the second best back behind Le'Veon Bell in the league.
You can make a case that he's still the best. Like, when you have Larry Fitzgerald and he comes out and says we're a running football team because of how good David Johnson is,
he's
boy can play.
Yeah, top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
And that offense is really good. That defense, though, it's a little surprising how not as dominant. Tyrann Mathieu was hurt in that 49er game.
But he's, you know, he doesn't look like himself when he is playing. Patrick Peterson is kind of just doing his thing.
Again, one player, just like Desmond Trufant.
Exactly.
Like, how much can a corner really affect the entire defense? Calais Campbell's getting old.
Calais Campbell, yeah. I don't know. It's just a lot of players that on paper are better than you, and they're not playing to the level they need. I'm not saying that Bruce Arians is on a hot seat by any means, but something needs to change. They could very well be in that recyclables, but it just doesn't look like it.
Yeah. And the last 2 teams that we are going to include in this undercover trash segment is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes.
Where you don't really know what they are. Like Tampa Bay, they beat up on the bad teams really well. We saw what they did to Cleveland. We saw what they did to the Chicago Bears.
And the Niners.
I don't think they played Cleveland. I think I was thinking of the Bears. But Tampa...
They played really well against Oakland, and they have a lot of really competitive games, but they haven't beaten anybody.
Yeah. And I don't think they will beat anybody. I think they're...
And I thought they were going to be a wild card contender.
It's in its infancy of really Jameis Winston. It's only his second year, right? You drafted last year?
Mariota's class, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So it's really a new Dirk Cutter-led Bucs team. It wasn't really feasible that team was going to go very far, and they haven't. They've kind of lived up to expectations of, hey, this could be a team on the rise in the future, but really they have so many flaws. They can be beaten pretty easily, and they don't really scare anybody.
And they're on their 4th and 5th string running backs. They don't have Charles Sims. They don't have Doug Martin. They don't have Jaquiz Rogers, so they're on
Philip Barber.
and Rondé whatever.
Rondé Barber.
So there's a lot of injury bugs in this list, but Tampa Bay, they're not going to go anywhere. They don't have a lot of hope to reinvent themselves unless suddenly miraculously Doug Martin comes back to play. But and then the other team, Baltimore Ravens, started out 3-0. They were really hot off the jump. The first sign that something could be undercover trash was when they were down 20-0 to the Browns. And then they came back and won 25-20, but there was something off there. You don't get down 20 to the Browns unless there's something wrong with your team. And you've seen it kind of just be competitive, lose a couple close games, then you beat the Steelers, and then it's just a lot of back and forth that makes you think, oh, maybe you could turn it around, and then you lose all hope, and then maybe you could turn it around, and then you lose all hope. And it's just back and forth.
Yeah, ultimately, they just don't have any skill position players that really
Steve
strike
Smith?
fear into you. Yeah, the 38-year-old, 39-year-old. Like, don't find me, Steve Smith, and kill me, but you're not that great anymore. You're not the difference maker that you once were.
Yeah.
And if Steve Smith's your best offensive weapon, it's hard to be competitive. And really, it shows what that Joe Flacco contract, it just kills a team.
Yeah.
Where you overpay for your quarterback just because he won you a Super Bowl and you're afraid to lose him.
And really, Joe Flacco doesn't mind because he got his ring.
I wouldn't either.
Now he's getting his money. He did it the opposite way most people do, where they get their big contract and they sit easy and then they go ring chasing. He got his ring early, and now he can just cash in, sit back, and enjoy the view and let his team be trash, and he'll eventually get traded somewhere to some team that's hoping that they can get new life out of him, and it'll be like Joe Montana on the Chiefs.
It's I went to Delaware, and I signed a $100 million contract. My
Sure.
life is good.
Yeah.
My life is great. Hey, all more power to Joe Flacco. All right, so let's go to
Do
our...
you realize that Baltimore is in Maryland, not Delaware?
I meant his college career.
Oh, Delaware. Okay.
Yeah, he's fighting blue hens. Let's talk
That
about...
even threw me off.
Yeah, so let's talk about the trash teams. Let's start with my San Francisco 49ers, who are hot, stinky
I feel like
garbage.
we have less details about these teams. The 49ers are bad.
Yeah.
They beat the Rams and nobody else.
Yes. And I couldn't be happier with it as a San Francisco 49er fan.
They almost won a game, and it would have been the worst case scenario.
Yeah, because now you're staying in that range where you can pick a good quarterback. Deshaun Watson, the guy I've been touting for the 49ers for the longest time now, number 2 rated quarterback. So if you go 1-2, according to Tom McShay, if you go 1-2, right now the Niners' second worst record in the league, you get Deshaun Watson, you start over with Chip Kelly, and maybe you have hope. At this point, there is no hope.
I think you got to get rid of Trent Baalke at the end of this year, man.
I'm good with that.
I mean, when you have the owner's cousin saying that Jed York needs to be fired and he needs to sell the team to her, that, obviously there's something wrong there. And maybe the 49ers just have the curse of the Harbaugh.
Curse of the Levi.
Yeah, the curse of Santa Clara. Yeah. Whatever you want to call it, there were business decisions that were made that negatively impacted the team from a competitive standpoint and a popularity standpoint. And you have to deal with the consequences of those actions. So, of course, what do? You go out and you almost beat the Cardinals. And that's why the Cardinals are undercover trash, because they almost lose to the 49ers. And the 49ers will eventually win maybe 1-2 more games, and they'll be right in the thick of it for 4th. And they'll miss out on every good quarterback, and they'll take a guy from Oregon. And it's going to be great.
Oh, man. That is the worst case scenario, because there are some other really trashy teams in the league, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I thought were the up-and-coming team this
We
year.
both did.
Yeah.
You're not alone in that.
There's so much potential in there, and Gus Bradley, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I don't know, man. It's good.
He's just a defensive coach that can't coach defense.
No.
And he can't coach offense, clearly.
Obviously.
The Blake Bortles experiment is
Honestly, he's the best garbage time quarterback there is. I went, you know what? In my actual fantasy league, I went, this week's the week. I'm getting somebody new. I'm not going to play Blake Bortles. And so I pick up Alex Smith, and he has 9 points at the end of the game. And Blake Bortles, who loses by double digits, has 18 fantasy points. And I hate myself.
Yeah, and Blake
So
Bortles,
I'm just playing Blake Bortles the rest of the year.
when your team is constantly in garbage time, you know what you are? You're trash. So the Jets are our next trash team because Ryan Fitzpatrick, Geno Smith. It's just the quarterback, really. Like, their defense is all right. They still have solid name power. They don't really defend anybody that well with the corners. Like, Darrelle Revis gets blown by every single week.
Yeah, he's the giving
seemingly.
tree now.
And so the Jets defense doesn't have that mystique anymore. The offense is really hampered by their quarterback woes with Geno Smith out for the year.
I'll sum it up real quick. 8 interceptions in a game.
Yeah. That's the Fitz magic that the Jets were trying to go to the playoffs
That's
with.
the Fitz trash. Moving on. Carolina Panthers.
Eesh. Carolina, I don't even know how to explain how they got so trashy. Like,
This is the same team from last year.
And-
I don't get it.
it just shows, like, I feel like the randomness of football is the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
Where you have the exact same roster, but the fact that you stayed pat just made the whole league pass you by. And they just figured you out.
Yeah, the whole league had the entire offseason to go, how do you stop those guys? And you look back at the entire film and they go, okay, so this guy's running this way, that's when you stop him here. That guy is going off of this route, that's when you stop him here. And then you go out and you have the same guys running the same plays in the exact same spots. And you go, oh, hey, I remember this from film 4 months ago. And now you're 2-6.
And you don't re-sign your cornerback who fit your system perfectly, really stopped half of that field, made the defense so much more easy because you didn't have to worry about Josh Norman guarding his defender. You know you're going to shut him down. And so you lose him. Your rookies don't really pan out as quickly as you would hope to. You had Benet Wickery, who just gave up 3 million yards to Julio Jones in that one game against the Falcons. And
Josh Norman throwing shade after the game.
yeah. But the Panthers, who would have thought getting Kelvin Benjamin back meant absolutely nothing? And
I thought they were slated for another undefeated season. And, you know, I think that they cursed the Warriors because they had the best record and then didn't win the Super Bowl. And then the Warriors had the best record and they didn't win the playoffs.
So
they didn't win the championship.
Thanks, Cam Newton, for passing your...
Cam Newton blew a 3-1 lead to Cleveland.
All right, and so our last trash team are the Chicago Bears. Again, a really mess of an organization.
Yeah.
The personnel didn't really do much. Their defense has been better. The signing of Danny Trevathan and Jarrell Freeman for the middle linebacker positions and their rookie Floyd. I think that's a good core to build around that front seven. Tracy Porter's been all right at the cornerback position, but the rest of it, you have a whole other side of the field that you can just pick apart because you don't have anybody defending that for the cornerbacks. And then their offense is
Jay
Cutler.
Cutler is Jay Cutler. And
who would have thought Brian Hoyer being hurt would be like the biggest loss of the season?
Brian Hoyer was so good when he was playing there, too. I picked up Cameron Meredith in my fantasy team because he went off for, 10 catches in 2-3 games in a row. And then you come back and, like, Kevin White being out, that's a problem because that's the second straight year he's been hurt. And, where would the Raiders be if they had taken Kevin White over Mark Cooper? Obviously, different situations. Maybe he doesn't get hurt, but still, that was a debate 2 years ago. But the Bears are bad, man, and they're just trash enough to beat people, and that's a problem because now you have like the 8th pick.
Yeah, and you don't get any better.
Yeah.
But as bad as all these teams are, there is
favorite part.
One team that is not even on the list, and that is the Cleveland Browns. Not even in the field. It's the rest of the league, and then it's the Cleveland Browns. They have a baseball guy running their day-to-day organization.
Analytics.
And
sabermetrics.
they're just terrible.
When you have crowdfunding to throw a parade when your team goes 0-16, you are no longer an NFL team. You are a joke. When your NFL color scheme is orange and you are the Cleveland Browns, you are a joke. When you have 17 quarterbacks in 9 years and the last quarterback to win you a game is now refusing to go to rehab, you are a joke. You don't deserve to be in this league, Cleveland.
Well said, Mike. Well, you had that like 3 weeks of like not filming. You just
it's actually been like a year and a half of vitriol. I love Johnny Football. They did him wrong, and obviously you're gonna go clubbing when you're in Cleveland because there's nothing else to do except the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and an Indians game.
Yeah,
and obviously a Cavaliers game.
Yeah,
but
City of Champions, not so much in football. Where, yeah.
Although to be fair, I think in 3 years they could be a semi-decent team because I believe in Hugh Jackson to really turn teams around. I think he's pretty good at doing that. And then, they'll fire him and get another quarterback. So, I don't know, man. They're going to pick another quarterback again this year in the draft. They'll probably get the wrong one, or they'll trade back from the first spot to get, like, the number 10, the number 25, and, like, a future third rounder. And they'll pick up a left tackle and a backup middle linebacker. And then they'll trade away that future third-round pick for another third-round pick in the future. And they'll just, like, the fact that you're not laughing about how much of a joke that is tells you how much of a joke Cleveland is.
Yeah.
So.
They got Jamie Collins, though, you guys. Third-round pick. But earlier in our show, I talked about how great Jamie Collins was. They got that guy, so there's hope. And that does it for us here at the Not Mike and Mike Show. Brian Nelson here, Mike McLeod. We've talked about the NFL, then we talked about the NFL, and then we wrapped up with the NFL. Be sure to check us out later in the week when we talk about the NFL some more, and hopefully have a little bit more well-rounded of a show. But make sure you check that out. And that's it for us here at the Not Mike and Mike Show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.